Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. We are here today to talk about breaking the cycle of silence, and we are so excited to be having this conversation in honor of Black Maternal Health Week. We are joined and led today to be learning from Shay Davis and Natasha Hall, and I will let each of you introduce yourselves, and I'm going to mute myself, so please dive in and introduce yourselves.
No. Well, hello, everybody who is tuned in. My name is Chena Benson Davis, also known by the community as Shay, the holistic doula of Butta's Holistic Services. I am a full spectrum holistic doula. I serve clients through fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum. And I've been a doula for the past 9 years. This is my passion and my love. And my passion is rooted in care amongst Black and Brown communities. And so I'm just happy to be here during this special week.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Natasha Hall, the founder and CEO of Herplum. I actually started Herplum because I struggled with my reproductive health for a very long time and wanted to find better solutions. So Herplum is a feminine hygiene and wellness brand that's combining menstrual health and mental health. We do offer non-toxic reusable pads, and we combine it with monthly breathing and meditation videos to support PMS, PMDD, cycle anxiety, or postpartum. And so the goal for us is to be able to help women to connect with their bodies and build body awareness.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would love to hear from each of you a little bit more about what drew you to the reproductive and menstrual health work. I know you both have this holistic lens, so kind of what brought you here? Natasha, you shared a little bit about that already, but I would love to hear a little bit more about what brought you each here.
Yeah, so I actually got my menstrual at 10 years old, and I experienced irregular periods, abnormal cells, a cyst that was blocking a fallopian tube, which I had to get surgery for, and then developed fibroids. And I was like, this cannot be it. This doesn't make sense. And so I started to tap into what are some of the other options. And thankfully, my grandmother, who was a nurse, my family's from Guyana. And so my grandmother did take a lot of the holistic items that we did use back home and shared, change your eating habits and try to use better menstrual products and see if that helps. And so for me, I started off with, not understanding what was happening to my body. And starting from a place of what is wrong with me to really, wait, nothing's wrong with me. I need to be able to just understand what's going on. So that's what helped me to kind of dive in even more to supporting my reproductive health.
So my journey, I would say, started around the same time, about 10 years old. I experienced my first period, and I remember being excited because I knew that it was going to be happening. I had a cousin who was like, this is what happens, and then you become a woman. And I was like, womanhood sounds so cool at 10 years old. And so when I started my first period, I was living in St. Croix. So that is where I grew up, in St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands. And we just traditionally and culturally just had some things that we did around the time of your period in terms of just like what you drank, what you, how you moved your body. I remember my dance teacher encouraging me on the days that I had my cycle to move. She's like, you got to move like this and you got to do this, and this is going to feel better in your body. And then fast forward to coming to the US, to the States. I would spend summers in New Jersey with my grandma, who's from Guyana. And that shift into being here and then moving here completely, my period was a different experience. And it was a lot more intense, and it was just hard to manage in comparison to how it felt back home in St. Croix. And I remember my grandmother just saying, like, these are the things that we need to do. And culturally as well, she brought some things to the forefront. And that whole experience just triggered my curiosity. And how did the body change so drastically just within a matter of, a few years, and this experience being so different? And why isn't this information talked about more here? Thank God I had my grandmother to kind of walk me through some of the things to do, but it just wasn't discussed. Here in the US, it's like the period was the worst thing possible. It was miserable. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that. And I know that from experience, but it kind of feels like that. And so even in my work of holism, that is, I guess, where the baby steps came from, and just understanding what the body needs, and zeroing in on a few things in your lifestyle.
Thank you. Yeah, I know on a call that we had in preparation for this, Shay, you had also talked about like the historical context behind this, the way that we are approaching our understanding of our cycles, and the knowledge that's coming. You both mentioned specifically learning from your grandmothers, which is amazing. It's like to have that generational knowledge passed down and have this discussion be open, I think is so amazing. But I would love to hear more about your perspective of the historical context that really shapes our understanding of our cycles and has really led us to both these spaces where it's not talked about, or the spaces where it is talked about, the ways that it's talked about. I think that that's a really important place to start.
Yeah. I often think about the way that womanhood and femininity was kind of diminished into, oh, you just have to be soft and pretty and sweet and smell good, and this was just historically kind of what came to be. Here in the mainlands, periods are not talked about. It's something that is a secret. It's something that, you handle in private and you handle on your own. And in some cultures, even it's believed to be like an unclean period, where it's like you stay away from that person. There's something going on there, which we know it's completely natural. So it became taboo to even like talk about your period, to talk about what you're experiencing, to know if it's normal. Society made it seem like it was something to be miserable. Then we fast forward into, the more recent times. So 21st century. Now it's like, oh, well, women can do all things. They need to be on the go. And now we have tampons on the go, and we have this on the go, and we have the cup, and so it pushed women into, one, not talking about it, and then two, being led to believe that they had to uphold these certain standards of, we have to keep going, and not honoring the cycle that they're in and why they feel like this. So we're told to kind of ignore the symptoms and ignore the things that we're experiencing, because everybody deals with it and we just go on with life. And so there's still a lot of disconnect amongst women, amongst community, when it comes to period, and disconnect within ourselves surrounding periods. And then like even if we wanted to go into Black history more, a period was something that was hidden. And once certain cultures came to America, it was hidden, because what did that mean? That meant that this young woman is now able to carry children, is now a woman, now her body's going to be changing. And, in certain times, in colonial times, that these were numbers. We're looking at these young women to produce workers and to keep going. So it became kind of even taboo to talk about amongst one another, who knew culturally what the significance of the period was and how special it was. But it was like, oh no, that you're doomed once that period comes. So there's been a lot of takeaway, but more conversations like this, and I'm excited to be here with Natasha, because I would consider that she's the guru of all of these things, because she centered her business around it. And so I am looking forward to this conversation being normalized.
Yeah, I think even from a healthcare perspective, right, the women's anatomy wasn't even like really researched until the late 20th century. And so like the 1990s, right? And so we are in 2026. That wasn't too long ago, right? I was born in 1984, right? And so when you think about it, it literally just happened. And so if you even think about the things that we're researching now and why they're happening, we didn't have that information in the past, because most of the text around healthcare was around men, right? The male anatomy. And so really trying to, we are now catching up, right? We're in a place where we're like, okay, let's do a bit more understanding of what's actually happening to the body, that women are experiencing or maybe complaining about, right? I'm going to use the word complaining, right, in quotation marks. But really, we're getting to a place now where from a healthcare perspective, we're now catching up. And that sounds like wild because I think more people are having more conversation like this around, if this is happening to me and to everyone else, then there needs to be a bit more research around it, right? I think we are fighting to put more dollars to get more research done for things like fibroids and endometriosis and these other kind of symptoms that women experience. And so I'm glad that we're pushing forward and having these conversations, because I think it is so important for women to not feel alone and to really tap into those internal conversations that they're hearing, right? Wait, this doesn't feel right, and that doesn't feel right. And so who can I talk to about it? It's communities like this, right? Where women feel safe to have these conversations. And it doesn't only have to be related to menstruation. It could be through any cycle that we have, from when you first get your period all the way through menopause, right? And so when you have children, postpartum, like all the things, we need to be able to share actually what's happening so that we can then drive our healthcare system to provide the solutions that we need in order for us to heal. So I'm glad that we're in a place where we are putting more efforts into our research so that women can get the support that they need.
Thank you. Yeah, that discussion of the cycle within the cycle, I think is like so it is coming to light more now, and it's also a remembering, right? It's like obviously your grandmothers and their grandmothers knew these things, and it's now coming into the spaces of more clinical research and understanding. So I'm curious, with each of you, when was it that you started to recognize your cycle as a whole cycle and not just your period? And can you kind of walk us through what is actually happening in the cycle for a woman, throughout the whole cycle, is versus just focusing on the period? Because I think there is so much focus where it's like, this is it, your cycle is the 1 week, and it's like, nope, actually.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'll jump in here because this actually makes me so excited. I think a lot of women don't know the full cycle, and even myself, right? I think about maybe 15 years ago is when I started to do a bit more research on what is actually happening during my cycle and how can I learn from it, right? So even thinking about that, that's when I started to kind of tap into, what products I use. But really, it was, wait a second, the cycle actually, there's 4 phases, right? The period is just the first phase of the 4, kind of the 4-step cycle. And so your menstrual cycle is truly, the menstrual phase is when you are menstruating, right? And then the follicular phase happens right after that. And so when you are in your menstrual phase, your estrogen and your progesterone are low. That's at its lowest point. And this is when you're kind of like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want nobody to talk to me. I just want to kind of relax and kind of rest, right? And so you should actually listen to your body during this time, because it's actually telling you what it needs, right? It's saying, hey, I'm releasing, and you need to be able to just let me do that, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a time where you should be kind of journaling, kind of planning what you're supposed to be doing over the next 3 cycles, right? So the next phase in that 4-part cycle is the follicular phase. And in that phase, that's when your estrogen starts to slowly increase. That's when you start to get a bit more energy. You start to feel like you don't have as much kind of, as they call it, brain fog, right? You can be a bit more creative. And so during this time, this is when you kind of, again, get more energy. You can start to exercise a bit more versus when you're in your menstrual phase. And then there's the ovulation phase. And so this phase is very short. This phase is when women can get pregnant, right? And so during this time, this is when your estrogen is at its peak point, right? It's when you're able to, you look your best, you feel your best. This is really the time for you to go out and network and meet people and really tap into your energy. And then there's that last phase, which is, I feel like, the longest phase, which is your luteal phase. And in that phase, that's when your estrogen starts to decline and your progesterone starts to increase. And so you start to experience, some people start to experience PMS, PMDD, where you are having sometimes mood swings. And that's only because your hormones are increasing and decreasing at rates that you're kind of like, wait, I was just at a high estrogen level and now boom, here goes progesterone and it's telling me, sit down, right? So during this time, it's really about kind of taking a step back, completing any projects that you have, really taking a time to review, right? What did I plan this month? What did I accomplish? And then be able to say, okay, let me kind of slow down. If I'm doing heavy exercising, let me kind of slow down and really tap into what my body needs. So this is about listening. This is a time of listening. And then you kind of go back into that cycle again, right? You get your period. Most people are like, oh, I hate it. But I think during that time when you do get your period, it's really a relationship, right? It's a, oh, hi, thank you for coming, because guess what? We all know if you get your period, or most women, that's when you get your period, you can get pregnant, right? And so it's a time for you to say, okay, I'm still getting my period. I'm so excited, right? Because my cycle is my body is continuing to operate as it should, right? And so it's a time where you should say, I'm so grateful that I do have my period. And so when I'm ready to get pregnant, I can tap into that ovulation time and then, have children when I'm ready. So the cycle phases are something that I think I wish I knew when I first got my period, because then it would have given me the ability to know when to pause, to relax, when I have my most energy, when to engage with like new things that I want to learn. It gives me the ability to really use my cycle as a way to learn, relax, pause, and listen, right? And so, yeah, it's unfortunate that it was only about 15 years ago, but I wish I would have known from the beginning of time. So to any person that has their menstrual or knows younger girls that just got their menstrual, just even this information gives them a better foundation for them to be able to say, oh, now I know how to kind of tap into my energy and not overstress my body when I don't need to.
Yes. Absolutely, I agree. And what I want to even touch on a little bit, and of course, doula mind and just the way that I operate, is when you have the information, you can plan better, and you can allow yourself the opportunity to kind of be soft and be in your body and in that moment, right? And again, in this fast-paced environment where it's like go, 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 when it comes to period, if you have to, sure. But if you don't have to, this is a great time to just tap into your inner self, to your femininity, to just enjoy this phase. And honestly, most women, those who don't know their phases, and we all tend to get there unless we have hormonal issues where it's still it's up in the air. We don't know, right? There's when we don't know what the cycle is, there's that disconnect where it's just I don't know what's going on in my body. And it just feels out of sorts to not have all of the information. And so When you can have it, absolutely. It is so empowering to know. And so menstrual phase, absolutely. You want to kind of relax, be in your body. I try to encourage the young women in my lives, the women in my life to, you don't have to do anything. And it's not an excuse, right? Because they're like, oh, I don't want to use the excuse of it's not. Physically, your body is already doing a lot of work and just needs some time to kind of reset, sit in it, and enjoy this phase. And it's like, of course, you can do things. We're not saying you're incapable, but in this moment, if you don't have to, don't. Sit with yourself a little bit. Move your body in your menstrual phase. Get a nice little routine that feels good, something cozy. So, I'm a doula. I'm on the go all the time. I'm a mom of 3 kids. And so that being said, life can get very busy, and I just know around menstrual phase, I am not going to be my best self. I'm going to need some extra naps. I'm going to need an extra blanket. I have a heated blanket, my cozy socks. And just because it makes me feel good mentally to take care of myself physically in that moment, that I don't have to try to push my body into something that it just does not feel up to doing. So menstrual phase, we focus on warming things. We focus on things that help with blood flow. So, a nice salad with like beets, having a beet juice, red raspberry leaf tea. That's like the golden tea, right? Everybody talks about it. And just sitting with yourself a little bit. And then we get into the follicular phase, which is where we're like, okay, I feel a little bit of my old self coming back. And for me, I love that phase because I'm like, okay, not that I did not enjoy my menstrual phase, sure. But in follicular phase, you're like, okay, now I can kind of do some of the things on my checklist a little bit. I do feel a little bit more like myself. And in those moments, like eating something light. So menstrual phase, like typically we eat a little heavier red meat, red veggies, really nourishing the body and loving on the body and doing all of the cozy things. And then after that, we can be a little bit lighter. So now we're having like lighter meals. Now I go outside for a walk, do some grounding, just feel my body, because you don't want to push yourself into something too soon. So go outside a little bit, but not too outside. just meander around. And so this phase is, again, a more energetic phase. That is when you kind of are seeing like the light at the end of the tunnel, like, okay, I feel like a little bit more of myself. And then ovulation is when you are yourself and then some. You're like 100%. And in this phase, you feel more confident. Physically, the body feels at its peak. I work out regularly. So like, I know in follicular phase, I'm like, okay, we're going to increase the weight or maintain the weight. But ovulation, I'm like, I'm going to pick up this weight a little bit heavier and just see what I can do, because now you just feel more strong in your body. Your body kind of had a time to settle. Again, during your menstrual phase, you're losing blood. So you are going to have dips in your iron level and just maybe not feel the best physically. That's why we focus on nourishing ourselves. But in ovulation, our body is kind of peaking back up and kicking into high gear. So now you can really push yourself a little bit more and do more. And so in that time, I encourage, my friends, I'm like, let's go out and do something. Let's do a yoga class we've never done before. Let's go hiking. Let's do something that feels good in the body and just push ourselves a little bit more and see how that feels. And you typically feel good in doing that, right? And that is when you look your best too. So you want to be outside anyway. And then luteal phase is when we kind of come down from that. So that's what ovulation, follicular and ovulation phase those are my times. But luteal phase, now we are more introspective. We are now coming down from the hormones. Our body's taking those moments to get ready for the menstrual phase once again. And so in that time, again, now we want to become more inward, clear some things off of our schedule if we can. Start planning for our nourishing meals that are coming up. Maybe we're not cooking as much. Maybe we're just ordering some things, or we are, again, I have 3 kids and a husband. So, hey, around this time, let's plan dinners. Let's do some meal planning and just have things ready so that life doesn't feel too busy, and that we can, or I can, take that moment to just sit with myself a little bit more. And this is what I encourage, women to do, especially women who are trying for children. So as we're talking about fertility, this is a perfect time for you to learn your body and fall into those phases and understand why your body is doing what it does, and to honor that time, because the more you honor it, the more capable it is to keep going, right? And to continue ovulating and continue menstruating and all of the things that are going to help with your childbearing time. So I like to really in fertility focus in, as much as we're like, know your cycle and know everything, but even more than knowing the numbers, just knowing how it feels in your body, because that is going to help you to fulfill your body with what it needs and to conceive the child that you are trying for. So I love, understanding the cycle. And I do wish that I had known it. And I feel like we always kind of intuitively know, but we play it off as, oh, the madness of the cycle, right? It's the period's coming. I can feel it. That's why I was so crazy today. But also it could be exhaustion. It could be fatigue. It could be that you did too much, in that luteal phase. And now when your period comes, you're kind of done. So it's very important to kind of just know and to tap into your body. And I encourage it for women, childbearing or not. Just know thyself, tap in and feel what your body feels. And that helps us to be better prepared for the phases of life in general.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious what advice you would give to someone who's just starting to track their cycles, because you each named such beautiful examples of like what you may be feeling, what you may be experiencing, like ways to start being conscious of it. But what advice would you give for like the practical, is it journaling? Is it using an app? How do people start to really recognize the patterns of their cycle for them personally? Because obviously there's a big range.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jump the jam, but I'll be quick. And so, one, understanding us as women, we can sense certain things in our body. And so what I like to joke about, but I'm also very serious, is just like our body temperature. The temperature of our body, the way that we smell, the way that we feel, these things, when you're just like, oh, today's been a little bit more of a sweaty, funky day, you're probably in that follicular to ovulation phase, because pheromones, body is just heating up, things are happening. But also, very practical, and the old school method that I use often for my fertility clients is the discharge, the cervical mucus and discharge that comes. And as women, again, we don't talk about that enough, because I always check my OB when we talk about this, but I'm like, let's stop saying that it's not normal to have discharge. Let's start to explain to women what that means and what is abnormal discharge and what is normal discharge, because having none is not realistic or even healthy. So just talking about what that looks like. And so often a lot of women can tap into that, and they're like, oh yeah, I did notice, but they don't want to talk about it. And so I'm like, this could be just a secret between you, your partner, and your body. This, look at the phases of what you're feeling, the temperatures in your body. And if you want to physically take your temperature, you absolutely can. But understanding that you're going to be a little bit warmer on the mornings before, or the days before ovulation into ovulation, just there will be a few days where those temperatures spike for you. And you're also going to notice that there's going to be a difference in your discharge. So I'm just going to put out there, because I'm the girl that says all the things, creamy white discharge, completely normal. That is your day-to-day, okay? And that is usually in your follicular phase that you're having this. And then you're going to have some sticky, kind of gummy discharge that is a little bit more juicy. Something is going on differently. That is the discharge, that is ovulation discharge. And those are the days that you're also feeling a little hotter, and you're like, maybe I did too much, maybe I was sweating down there, something. No, there's a reason and a purpose for that. And then we go into more like dry, nothing much, but it's still there, discharge. And that is in our luteal phase, where the hormones are coming down. We're not as receptive. And remember, it's a cycle. So our body gets receptive. Our body is not as receptive in luteal phase to some of the advances of our loved ones, right? And physically as well. And then, of course, there is the period where there is that time of bleeding. And so just taking note of that and just what the body is doing down below, that is going to give you a great insight on where you are in your phases. And that can also help you to kind of link the other things that are going on physically with your body to say, oh, this is my, luteal phase thing. This is my ovulation phase thing. This is my follicular phase thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm going to add on and just say, so I'm a yogi. At heart, I've done yoga for over 14 years. And one of the things that I was able to do in doing yoga was listening in, right? So even, on a day-to-day, some of us have, okay, I'm going to drive my car, I'm going to go this way. And the GPS says go this way, but something in your brain tells you, no, turn that way, right? And then you don't go that way. You realize following the GPS, maybe you might run into traffic, and then you go, darn. So it's really that write down or really journal, hey, on the days that I am kind of tuning in or listening to my body, what is actually happening during those times? How do I feel? And kind of keep track of that month over month. And then you'll kind of understand a bit more of, wait, I'm feeling like this during these times of the month. And so maybe that's when I am in my menstrual phase, or when I am in my follicular phase, ovulation or luteal phase. And so it gives you the ability to kind of hear your own voice as you're going through your cycle, and kind of build a relationship with your body. So for me, it's really about how to tap in, how to have those kind of listening, or like hearing yourself from the inside and saying, wait, what is my body actually feeling? Right. And maybe even tapping into some of your emotions and saying, hey, during this time, I'm very angry. Right. And so why are you angry? Is it associated with, the things that you did during the day? Is it because you feel fatigued? Is it because, maybe you're just like energy levels low, right? And so you just have to be able to kind of listen into your body and kind of journal those and figure out, during these times, this is how I'm feeling. This is when my decision making is really good. This is when I'm able to hear more about, me. When I say hear more, meaning listening into your body, this is when I'm able to hear more. Maybe it's only during the ovulation phase that you're able to hear more. And so you want to be able to kind of use that energy as your way to listen in as you're experiencing your other phases, your luteal phase, menstrual, and follicular phase. So for me, it's really about writing it down. I know some people use apps for them to be able to like track it, but sometimes being more intentional and writing it down, pencil and paper, it gives you the ability to connect to your body even more, right? Because you're kind of writing down your thoughts, you're writing down your feelings, and it builds a connection. So I would always say to anybody, tap into your body in a very intentional way by truly sharing honestly, hey, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. As Shay was saying, this is the discharge I'm having. This is the color that it is, right? Go in detail. And guess what? You're able to learn so much about your body in just doing that over a few months, right? And you would actually know more about your body than your healthcare provider. So so it's just a way of like learning your body in a very intentional way and giving you the ability to make more informed decisions on when you do things versus not. So yeah, writing it down and tapping in.
Thank you.
That you crave sometimes. I tell clients to check in with what their body is craving. That can also help them to know where their stages of what phases they're in.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm curious if you can each give us a few examples also of some like practices or practical application pieces of how you specifically slow down in order to tune in and listen to your body. Because Shay, you mentioned knowing that like you need to have your extra cozy socks and your heated blanket, and Natasha, you mentioned specifically yoga is a big part of your practice. So I'm just curious if you can each mention some practical application pieces for how people can get more in touch with that intuition, kind of slow things down and make it part of their daily lives to tune in with themselves.
Yeah, I'll start because again, this stuff makes me excited. So, as a yogi, and I think yoga is definitely a part of Herplum, in that we actually offer all of our customers a 5-minute breathing and meditation video for them to tap into their body once a month, right? 5 minutes a month, right? For you to actually pause. And so for me, it's really yoga has helped me to understand really what my body's doing and what my mind is doing. And so I actually use breathing as my as a way to tap in. So deep breathing, and really creating a space of, hey, my period is about to come. It's, you know, you can kind of feel it. It's the day before, 2 days before, you can start to get those, body feelings, those internal feelings. And so during that time, I actually do 5 to 7 minute breathing sessions, deep breathing. And I think most people kind of breathe through their shoulders, but it's really taking a moment and breathing through your stomach, taking deep breaths, understanding what's happening to your body as you're taking these deep breaths. Are you feeling kind of cramping in an area versus a different area? And so I intentionally set time before my cycle to breathe, do deep breathing. I do a lot of meditation to help me, again, tap into my body. And then after my cycle is complete, I actually do thank you so much for coming. I kind of give my cycle a acknowledgement that she's here, and she came and then she left, and so I'm so grateful. So I do that as before I start my cycle, deep breathing. After my cycle, I share just how grateful I am that my cycle is still here and that she wasn't so rough this month. Because all of us have had like day 2 where you're like, what is happening? So it's really just being thankful. And I realize every single month after, I do have, if I do that, right, I continue to do that, my cycle becomes easier and easier. But the month that I don't do the breathing before and thank you after, it's like boom, boom. It's like punching me all over the place. So I realize like how important deep breathing and just saying thank you internally is for me and how my cycle operates.
I like that. I also am a yogi, so I'm going to kind of repeat some of the things, but absolutely, even for those who aren't, who don't do yoga, who aren't yogis, just stretching. Make an intentional, I said 30 minutes a day, but starting 15 minutes in the morning. When you get up in the morning, move your body, because your body is going to tell you a few things, right? For me personally, I know when my period is coming because I get like just achy, tense pelvis. And so I typically know in yoga because I'm like, I can't do the crow today. Certain positions just don't feel as great and I have to work more in them. And so what I typically even do is I'll do more yoga around that time versus my weightlifting, because you also don't want to lift during your period. At least I don't. But moving your body, because your body is going to tell you what it's experiencing and what is to come, and you can feel the different just effects in your body. Meditation, absolutely. So in the morning before stretching, I just lay there and just inhale, exhale. So deep breathing while in the bed. And again, tapping into the body, mindfulness from head to toe, just accounting for everything and feeling, what does everything feel like today? I feel a little heavy and I had 8 hours of sleep. Oh yeah, I am in my luteal phase, right? I'm just a little bit more fatiguey. I'm a little bit more. So just sitting with yourself is going to give you a lot of insight on what you're feeling. And so I definitely encourage, look, there's times I'm in yoga and I'm stretching and I'm like, I love this, but today it's just, I'm just angry. you're moving too fast through the movements. You're talking to somebody's breathing too hard next to me. So there's just certain things that you'll just notice in your body that are easily triggered. And so you can tell that this is probably the time that you are, that it's your menstrual phase, or maybe just starting, maybe even just ending, where you're just like, there's something that is just not making me feel too great. And then, of course, journaling. Yeah, writing down how you're feeling today. And it could just be just that brief. Today, I feel amazing, great, wonderful. I want to go out for a walk. Today, I feel not too wonderful. I kind of feel a little nauseous. I think I'm going to get chocolate on the way home. Because even in those unintentional things that you just realize, the things that you're doing, you may later realize they're connected. The other day, I was just walking through, I love to do a little Dollar Tree stop, and I was walking through Dollar Tree, and I grabbed Kit Kats. They have the big pack. And I was like, oh, yeah, I love Kit Kats. I'm going to grab these. And I took them home and I put them away. And I was like, why am I craving Kit Kats? Like, I typically crave this around my period. And I was like, oh, wait, I have to look at my calendar. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's tomorrow. Let me pull out my socks and everything. So just really taking the time with your body. I don't think that we can emphasize that enough. You will learn a lot about yourself. Another intentional practice that I do is womb steaming or yoni steaming. And so when you are sitting in this quiet space over your herbs, covered up and warm, your mind will go to certain places. Your body's going to feel certain things. And so as much as I'm doing an intentional practice of steaming and like preparing my body for what I know is to come, I'm also listening to my body in that moment of how I'm feeling. What am I doing? My body doesn't crave a steam around ovulation the same way it does because I'm hot, right? And I'm active and I'm moving and I'm getting steams other ways. But luteal phase, I want a little bit more warmth. I want a little bit more comfort. Menstrual phase, well, the right before, which is luteal. These are the things that I want. And so just realizing that because you're sitting with your body, this is what my body wants. My body wants this possibly because X, Y, and Z. Here I am in my phases.
Yeah.
Thank you. I am also really curious around the ways to have these discussions with your care providers. You both mentioned talking to your OB and probably your GP or your midwife or whomever your care providers are, as you're becoming more aware of your body's own cycles. And maybe, Natasha, I loved the example you gave of like the GPS is telling you to turn one way, but intuitively it's the other way. Like, I think sometimes as you become more in tune with your body, you start to see those discrepancies more, right? So what advice would you give to someone to be able to best self-advocate and really speak with their care provider about these things, even when it feels like there's conflicting advice or conflicting information? What are those ways to like get in touch with not only the intuition, but then the voice to speak up and share that intuition?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I think the most important thing is how confident are you about what's happening in your body, right? And so it starts there, and that's with, are you journaling? Are you writing down exactly what you're experiencing during these different phases, so that when you are in the room with your healthcare provider, you can say, hey, these are the things I'm experiencing, and it happens during this time. And if you do get pushback on, oh, that's not really what's happening, right? Then you can say, wait, just want to make sure that I want to be heard, right? And so I want to make sure that you did hear me on, this is what I'm experiencing. And so I want to make sure, is there a solution for me? So sometimes it's just saying that one line, wait, just want to make sure that I am being heard, right? So that your healthcare provider can then say, hold on, I know I said something, but now this person is kind of pushing back. And so maybe there's a reason why they're pushing back. So let me take a moment to listen. And so with that ability to, hey, I've been journaling, I've been noticing more about what's happening, it gives you so much more confidence to push back on your healthcare providers and then say, please find me a real solution, right? And if you don't feel like you're getting the response that you feel like seems right for you, then you should actually get a second or third opinion, right? It's not your OBGYN or your healthcare provider is the only person you can speak to. There's no one else in the world, right? Come on, right? So I want people to know that there is another option that you can choose by going to a different healthcare provider and being heard by someone else, right? But it starts with how confident are you with your own body, and how can you share that with someone else? And it's okay if the healthcare provider is like, you know what, this is the process that we use, and that's it. Then you can say to yourself, that is not the healthcare provider for me, right? So it's just being like, setting your boundaries with how you want your health to be supported, and actually saying, I'm going to switch from you and go to someone else because I feel like they can support me better, right? But first, you do have to push back. And sometimes I feel like it's so hard to push back. Even in friendships, right? You're like, I don't really want to say what I want to say because maybe this might be tough. But if you're not actually saying what's true and real, guess what your body feels at first, right? It says, oh, she didn't listen to me. Just like, again, it's a relationship. You didn't listen to me. And so now it's going to get worse and worse, and whatever the condition may be, right? So it's really about building the confidence, sharing your experience, putting your boundaries down, or setting your boundaries if your healthcare provider doesn't hear you, and switching if you feel like that is the right solution for you. And I would honestly say, if you are not being heard, please switch, please, because it is not going to help you in the long run. And what's most important is your health. So, yeah.
All of that, mic drop. I agree 100%. And, in the work that I do as a doula, advocacy is a very big piece. And even more than, sometimes when you're sitting with a client who's hiring a doula, they're like, I'm hiring a doula because I want an advocate. And I'm like, absolutely. That's a no-brainer. However, I want you to be comfortable in advocating for yourself still. Yeah, I'm not going to be here to be the mouthpiece to say all of the things that you can't say. I want you to feel confident to say them, and I am your backup. I'm the one back there like, yeah, and she said what she said. This is what she wants or what she does. That is what I'm there for. I'm not here to speak up for you. And it's not because I can't. It's not because I'm afraid of any pushback, but it's because if we never take this opportunity to get you confident in yourself, in your own voice, I'm not going to be here forever. This is going to be a struggle that you're going to experience in all of the phases of your life. And so in your womanhood, absolutely, you want to be comfortable with advocating for yourself, because you don't want any stone to be left unturned. You don't want to ever walk away from something and say, I was not, I should have, I could have, and I didn't. That is one of the worst feelings, and I'm sure we can all attest to it. One of the worst feelings. And now when we're talking about our feminine health and our reproductive health, the last thing you want to say is, I should have, I could have. Because our wombs, and I teach classes on this, we also hold trauma there, right? We hold trauma in our body, in our pelvis, in all of these areas. And in all of the times that, like you said, Natasha, where you're not listening or you're not speaking up for yourself, the body's like, okay, I got to bear this. I got to bear this. And so you just become accustomed to just this knot in your stomach, this pressure in your body, because you're just like, I can't. And eventually you won't be able to, right? And so little by little, yes, speak up for yourself. So I absolutely love a journal as well. I tell clients to write down what they're experiencing, because again, some things can be interlinked. And the more you it's like a checklist, right? We get this relief from checking things off our checklist. If we're saying, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm noticing. And then as we're going through our day-to-day, it starts linking to, oh, you know what? My iron was low 2 weeks ago, and I was feeling a little, heart palpitations, and my period was really like, then you're like, I know myself, right? Like I know my body. And then you start checking it off and you're like, yeah, I do know myself. So you get that voice and that capability to really confidently say like, no, something is wrong because there is no link, to this right here. This is something new that I'm experiencing. And then always your provider is there for you. They're there to provide for you, hence the name provider, right? And so if they are not providing you with the information you need, the support you need, the extra eye that you need just to say that you're comfortable, even if it's something that is completely normal, what's a few minutes to just explain it to me, right? And so if you're not having that relationship where you're not comfortable with talking to your provider, that's not the provider for you. We can find another one. There are lots, right? And there's resources as well. So you can always look into the resources to choose a provider that may better align with what you're looking forward to.
Thank you. And thank you for that reframe. The provider is versus, I think so often we're like our healthcare professional, right? And it's like, no, it's a healthcare provider. If they're not providing, move on. I love that, Shay. Thank you. That one's going to be what I'll have to repeat. I think, you both have emphasized so beautifully how this really begins with knowing ourselves and turning inward. And Shay, you also mentioned this piece of how our bodies hold on to this trauma. So I would love to hear from you each about how do we now also not only recognize for ourselves, but start to shift the narrative for the next generation. How are we bringing this into the collective healing, bringing this into collective awareness, and then also passing this on to future generations so that this narrative really can shift in a similar way, Natasha, how you named that, like, healthcare is starting to now look at women's anatomy and women's hormones, a little late to the game, but it's starting to happen more. Like, how do we emphasize and bring these conversations forward?
I can start. Yeah. So I think first is, now that we have the information, right? It's now adjusting our habits, right? It's understanding how do we support our bodies better, but also it's these conversations. It's the, women's groups, or not only women, actually men and women coming together and having honest conversations about what's happening in the body. And then when there are children, explaining to them exactly what they will experience or should be experiencing, or what the cycle phases are. It's providing the information to the next generation so that they're not starting at the same starting point that each one of us start at, because no one is having the conversation, right? And I feel like these conversations help you to get kind of one step further than the previous generation, right? And so as we continue to share our experiences, as we continue to educate our younger, females and males, we want to make sure that they're educated on, hey, these are the hormones that go up and down. These are the cycle phases. This is how you tap into your body if you need a bit of support. This is how you listen in or tap in, and provide them the tools that they need to be able to support themselves, but also creating a community for them to feel safe, for them to have these conversations. I think one of the things that I am like super, super excited about as I continue to build Herplum is being able to go and talk to younger girls in the education system. So with the Department of Education, we're working on it. And so to be able to talk to younger girls and kind of bring the menstrual and mental health education in the school system, right? So that folks are educated, right? When you think about the first time you got your cycle, and I'm going to share mine, like, it was, don't get pregnant and here's some pads. And I was lost. I don't know what to do, right? And so it's really setting the next generation up with the tools that they need to support themselves. And that's physically and emotionally, right? I think there are so many emotions that come with having your cycle, and without someone there that understands, then you feel like you're on this island by yourself. So it's really kind of bringing community together so that people feel supported, and that includes education, right? The healthcare system will follow exactly what people are telling it to do, right? Because eventually they'll be like, well, no one's listening to me. I just have to do, have to do what the people want me to do. And so, which is, hey, support me or provide the services to me that I need based on my condition. I am a unique individual, and my symptoms are completely different and can be completely different than someone else. So also helping younger girls and males to know that everybody's body is different, and to not compare yourself or your experience with someone else, that you just have to share, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Has anyone else experienced this? And if you haven't, then where can I go to get the support that I need for this type of condition? So it's really about building community, making it so open and safe for people to feel confident that they can share. And then for the healthcare system to catch up, we have to come on, because we're saying, hey, this is the support that we need. You gotta do what we're asking you to do. So it's leading the charge. And I think that's what Herplum actually means. It's Herplum. It's her taking control over her fruit, her ability, her womb, right? It's her saying, I'm the one in charge, right? And it's really us taking ownership over exactly what's happening within our bodies. And so that means we have to tap in and we have to educate. I'm passionate, as you can tell.
Yes. And we love the passion. And just to piggyback, the support is in community. I think that, in our collective stories, you shared your story, Natasha, and I'm not going to necessarily share mine. It wasn't eventful or anything, but I think about my grandmother's story when she tells me about her period. So growing up in Guyana, they use cloth pads. And, I know cloth pads are all the wave now, but she would tell me how her period was such a miserable time. She was like, it was so miserable. I hated it. And I just wanted to crawl in a shell and die during my period. It was heavy. It was messy. It was all of these things. And she said that there was one day of her period and nobody else is going to know the reference or the area, but my family is from Georgetown, Guyana, and her school was going to a field trip to Berbice, which is a far drive. It's a ride. It's over an hour, maybe 3 hours. It could be quite far where she was going. And she had her period and she really wanted to go on this trip. She wanted to go so badly. And so she went, and midway through, as she was being miserable, her friend was like, what's going on? So she told her, and her best friend gave her a disposable pad. She gave her a few of them. And she was like, the way this disposable pad changed my life. She's like, it's like I put this pad on and my headache went away. My body aches went away. She's like, everything just went away because of this pad. And I was like, and I'm like, yeah, disposable pads. We have those all the time. But it was just, one, having the conversation, two, just making the connection. This does not work for me. This is working for, this worked for my mom. This worked for Sally down the street, but this is not working for me. I need something on. The friend being able to be like, here, this works for me. And she used that and it has changed her life. She's over 70 today and she can talk about this experience very, matter of factly, yeah, I remember what that was like. And yes, community. When I was experiencing my menstrual cycle, it's my dance teacher, Miss Curlis, who told me to move and dance and move my body. It was my mom's friend, Yvette, who was like, when you go to your room at the end of the day, take all your jewelry off, lay in the middle of the floor, put your hands on your womb and just listen to your body. And I was like, okay. And I was so perplexed that it worked for me. I was like, yeah. And so that's even still a thing for me. And that breathing that I do in the morning, I put my hand on my womb and I just listen. And so all of this information came from the people and the women in my community. And it wasn't that it had to be any big production or any big conversation. It was just us being able to share with one another, us being able to encourage one another. And so, that's one of the reasons I do the work that I do as a doula. My biggest the reason I do this is because I wanted to create a community for women that looked like me, for women who went through the struggles that, I went through, and vice versa. We're all one. And so absolutely, yes, to the community. And then understanding that sometimes there's just things that we won't know. And I think that we have been conditioned to feel like we have to know everything. And in certain dynamics, you're the oldest, you're the most whoever, you need to know everything. But if our body has not built a relationship with things, right? For example, a grandmother or a woman, a great grandmother who has not had a relationship with her period because she was told don't get pregnant when it happened and was handed a pad, right? How is she going to know any differently than that? She's like, it got me through, it'll get you through. But yes, you can get through, but we can do more than just get through, right? So for the woman who was just handed the pad, instead of saying, well, I don't know, I never experienced that, it's okay, well, let's find you somebody who does, because I don't know, but there is somebody who does, right? And so again, still sharing that idea of community. Connect with one another, share the information that you know, share the information you don't know, find somebody who does know. I do think doulas are a pillar of the community, right? I don't think there's any doula that you can walk up to and say, hey, I want to talk about fertility and periods. And they're going to be like, oh, no, who wants to? Trust me. We love this stuff. Let's talk. And so same for our young girls, right? And so, if you're a mama, auntie, a grandmother who has a young girl who is going through an experience that you have not experienced personally, or you don't know where to direct, find a doula, find a library, and Planned Parenthood. I know sometimes it gets that taboo because it's like, it's the place you go for, if you're doing things you're not supposed to do. Go to the Planned Parenthood, go to these places in the community and let them know that they're needed, because the more that community is saying we need these places and spaces, the more these places and spaces can continue to show up and continue to, get money to be funded to continue to be in the spaces that are needed for our young community. So absolutely, I think community is the word of the day. That is my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to open it up for any questions, but first I just also wanted to ask, are there any I feel like we've covered so many beautiful takeaways already, but is there any additional takeaway or one thing that you would want to make sure that people are taking away from this conversation, either about connecting with their own body or connecting with that community? Anything you feel like we didn't cover that you want to make sure gets spoken?
I'll just say that, I think every person on this planet is valuable, right? And you actually saying that to yourself, it allows you to make a shift on how you take care of your body, right? And so I just want to tell everyone, you are valuable. You truly, truly are. And so I hope that allows you to make the shifts to support your health, talking to your healthcare providers and getting the support that you need, getting community to allow you to support yourself in the way that you feel like you need it, because you are valuable, right? That's really, really what I wanted to share. And the more that you connect with yourself, the more that you realize, the more you start to believe it. Wait, I am valuable. And so I want to be able to support myself in the way that truly allows me to feel my value. So yeah, that's all I have for folks. You are valuable.
Sorry, all of my kids are laughing and having a good time. So I had to mute it for a moment. And I'm going to second that. You are valuable. You are your sister's keeper. You are your niece's keeper, your grandmother's keeper, all of it. We are connected. We are one as women. And, when we can show up for each other so often, we need to show up for ourselves. And when we can show up for ourselves, we can show up for others. So it's very important that we take that time to know who we are, to honor who we are, and to, let who we are be part of the community. Because this is how, the cycle will continue, a cycle of positivity. We talk the name of this was breaking the cycle. Yeah, let's break that cycle of not being connected, of thinking that we don't have similar experiences, or we don't have to talk about experiences because there is somebody else who can do it instead of us. Why us? Why not us? Let's have the conversation. But it does have to start with us advocating for ourselves and knowing who we are before we can show up for others. So tap in.
I love that. I love that.
And with that, I would love to open it up to the community members who are here. If you have any questions that you want to unmute and ask, feel free.
I just want to mention a similar situation and going to a different provider. For like 2 years, my husband's complaining about tingling and pain in his right hand and arm at night. Then it started during the day at different times. So one day back in October, I think, it was so bad that he called out from work. I made him go, practically dragged him there. We went to urgent care, and that doctor who was on duty was excellent. Spent like 15, 20 minutes examining his arm, comparing the right to the left and talking with him and all that. And he recommended going to see a hand surgeon. But I've had carpal tunnel surgery twice. But this doctor, because the first one, she's retired, I had my heart set on the second doctor. He recommended Dr. Fox, and we canceled that appointment and went to see Dr. McBride. He did a 5-minute exam and said he needs surgery, definitely. I didn't like that because when I had the surgery, I had to have all of those tests and physical therapy and OT. And here, this man that I admired, so I said, you know what? We're going to my back doctor. I'm making you an appointment with Dr. Gersman. He's a physiatrist, so he does the whole body, even though his specialty is the back, but he teaches at UMD and he teaches at Rutgers and Newark. And he said, you're going to have the EMG. He had the EMG. Made the appointment for the EMG, then made a follow-up appointment with Dr. Gersman. And he said the results are worse than what I thought. In that time, I talked to my son, number 2, and he said, oh, go to Dr. Fox, which is who the urgent care doctor recommended.
Right.
Because he helped him with his hand. My son works for the road department, so all sorts of stuff happens to them. And who did Dr. Gersman recommend? He recommended Dr. Fox. But this all took 4 months because they're just all so full, but it was at a slow. And I wanted him to get the surgery right away so I don't hear the complaining anymore. But I left him alone to make his own decision. And he had it yesterday. But, you think someone's fabulous, and then it's like, you didn't do the same exam as the doctor in the urgent care.
Right.
Where you're in and out.
Yeah. I have to congratulate you. Sorry, I don't know if that was what you wanted to add there, but I wanted to say I congratulate you for taking the time to truly be heard by the healthcare provider that was willing to give you the support that you needed. I think sometimes people kind of rush and, well, healthcare providers, they rush, and then they're like, do this, and here goes surgery, and then you're like, I wasn't even heard, right? So I congratulate you for taking the time, getting a second opinion, asking your son on who is the best provider to use, because now your husband is able to say, hey, I went to the right person to do the surgery that I needed to get done, and it was because I took the time to explain again, and then explain again, and to be heard, right, when to be able to support the surgery that I needed to get. So I congratulate you for even taking the time to find the right provider, because I think that's so important.
Yeah. Dr. Gersman is good. I mean,
I think I love that you shared this also, because I think it's so important to recognize someone can be great at what they do, but not great for your specific needs, right? The importance of stepping back into that space, like, okay, I really respect this person, but it's not what I need in this moment. Those two can coexist. And I think so often, especially as women, we're taught that if we respect someone, we have to listen to them. And not necessarily. I can respect someone and know that in this particular instance, it's not the right thing for me. So yeah, thank you for sharing that experience. Any other questions or comments? Anybody want to jump? Oh, sorry, Layla. I think I just muted. You can unmute yourself again.
I really appreciate this talk. I've been a nurse since 1980. And a lot of this stuff I didn't know. So, but journaling, no, that journaling isn't for me, and I'm beyond that. But this is advice. This is knowledge that I can pass on to someone in my childbirth classes and to a doula client. Yeah, because I've looked into those fertility courses. The price.
There's there's always options. So the resources are out there. Ask the community. We'll deliver.
And I think I wrote down the healing and the past hurts that come down through the generations. Yeah. Because I'm half Puerto Rican, so there's a lot there. There's a lot there. My father's all English, so there's nothing there. They're the ones who colonized. And my heritage on my mother's side is Spanish, African, and a little drop of Caribbean indigenous.
Yeah, of course, you're Puerto Rican. That's where the Tainos went.
I think there's a word, but no. Oh.
Thank you. Oh, you muted.
Thank you.
Any other PSs or questions?
I would just say both myself and Shay, please make sure to go to our websites. I'll share mine, herplum.com. Please join our subscription list. I definitely send out educational information, how to breathe and how to kind of tap into your body. So make sure to go to herplum.com, join the plum bunch, which is what we call it, a bunch of plums coming together to heal. So please join the Plum Bunch tribe. And Shay, I'll pause there. You can share your website and how people can tap in.
Yeah, so you can find me at did I say 3 W's? ButtaTheHolisticDoula.com. And I would just like to share, as we were talking about, just like community and different resources. Myself and my doula partner, Alexis Owusu, we do have a collaboration. It's called Butta and Ama. And in this collab, we are honoring womanhood and all of the different facets of womanhood, from, first menstrual to menopause. We host different events and parties, and you could even host a private party if you want a steaming experience, but just things that help us to if we didn't have it, or we had it and we lost it, but to just reignite the love that we have for ourselves, and just tapping into that ancestral wisdom, and just the intuition of our bodies. So you can find me on my website and email me, send me, a text, anything like that. All of my personal information is there, and I'm happy to talk to whoever about whatever surrounding womanhood.
Yeah, and I love that you said earlier, Shay, about if you don't know who to talk to, find a doula, because we absolutely will talk about all the things.
Don't throw any of the good stuff.
We're not supposed to talk about at the dinner table. We'll talk about it. Yes. Find a doula, and you can have any conversation you need to. Are the Shay, are the events that you and Alexis host listed specifically on your website, or is there another way to get in touch about those womb steams and tent events and things?
Yeah, so most of the event postings are on my Instagram. So if you go to my website, and it's also at Butta the Holistic Doula, you will see all of our events that we do, and then on Facebook as well. If you're not on Instagram, we have a Facebook. So everything, we'll find us. No worries.
Thank you. Excellent. And Layla, I saw you unmuted again. Did you have anything to add? No? Okay.
Stupid cat who knows she's not supposed to be on the table.
She wanted to be a part of the conversation.
Oh. Well, thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, Shay and Natasha, so much for this conversation. We will be sharing the recording, and you can absolutely reach out to Shay and Natasha for more information and to find out more about their services and connect with community. There are so many beautiful ways that we all can continue this conversation, so please, we encourage you to do so. And I hope you all have a beautiful Saturday, and get out and enjoy the sunshine, move your body, take advantage of whatever phase you're in, and really listen and tune in to what your body is needing most today. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.